We're joined live in the studio by my friend Captain Dan Buttery, the president and CEO of the War Memorial Center here in Milwaukee, and one of the commanders in the unit that I was in, embedded in Iraq 20 years ago. Hard to believe it's been 20 years.
What an incredible honor for you to be chosen as the journalist from Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
To do this reporting. I mean, that's a milestone, and amazing that you built a relationship with the military man who was your, would you call it a babysitter, Dan?
Well, I mean...
Minder.
We were.
I make light.
We were partnering.
I would say I make
mission.
light. I mean, you were in
Yes.
some very serious situations. When you get back together like this, what is one of the most intense situations you remember that you experienced with John in Iraq?
Well, there was a point where we were convoying up, long day and hours, and it was dark, and we were going around Baghdad, and there was a point where. I don't remember if this is before or after the incident, John, but I'm driving, the battalion commander's riding with me, and John and the camera guy are in my Humvee. So literally they've put all the assets like in my Humvee. And I still remember the shots were being taken and bouncing off the road in front of us. And I remember kind of pacing it and joking. I looked to the colonel. I said, "Are those bottle rockets?" You know, just trying to make light of what we had. And by the way, we're in soft shell. We're not in armored vehicles. Well, then we came up on vehicles that had been hit, and so our assets all went around this vehicle. They couldn't move it out. So what you do is you take the sensitive items, which are things like radios and whatever, and then you torch the vehicles because you got to move. You're in an ambush zone, and the camera guy came around. He was about to try to capture live footage, and I shut that down fairly quickly because. What you would have done is he would have come around, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I do.
You would have put the camera
light
on,
Yep.
and I whispered in his ear, and I said, I think I know what the cost of this is. I will shatter this if you turn that on.
Yep.
And then I escorted both he and John back around the Humvee and moved them by the wheel well. Because, again, we're exposed. We don't know where that shot's coming from.
That's when I realized it was a war. Like, we weren't just playing
Correct. You weren't on a set
TV.
someplace just doing whatever.
Yeah, but that gets to what you were talking about earlier. There was a confliction of what we both wanted to do.
Yeah,
because you had a job to do, which was to successfully carry out your mission. Our mission was to capture that. So I remember but it was a learning experience. He didn't know, didn't realize,
right?
But that was intense. That night in Baghdad was. I remember that night like it was yesterday.
There's a song there, that one night in Baghdad.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I like
John,
the
this sounds like a silly question, but did you fear for your life at times during that embedding?
I was scared sometimes, not like imminent, like I could die right here, but I was scared. That was one of the times I was.
But you could have.
Yeah,
we were in some.
I remember another time we went up into a tower to look out on an airfield, so that we could get a vantage point of MiGs and other assets that were on the airfield. We were up in the airfield. And suddenly, guards down at the bottom of the tower escort. They said, "You got to get down. You got to get down. We think there's a sniper out there, and you're a target. He'll take a shot at you up in that tower." And then that was another moment where it was like,
"You were at Balad. You were at Anaconda when that happened."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, I love the reminiscing, but I got to ask you about something very important. That's funding for the War Memorial Center. It's getting to be kind of a dire situation. How are you guys funded, and how's the situation looking right now?
Well, 66 years. I don't think most people understand we're a private nonprofit. We always have been a private nonprofit. The county owns the building, so it's a private-public partnership. So currently we raise 80% through events, through rentals, parking. We have tenants, but also fundraising and grant writing. So the county's generously been supporting us. A plan was put in place in 2017 to defund it, meaning because of the pending financial crisis that they had. And so they brought me in to ramp up a lot of initiatives and programs, which we are, but we still have some headwinds coming in out of COVID. We need a little runway to kind of keep this going. But we've brought in a lot of new initiatives and programs, and it's private funding.
Okay, so right now we know there's a crisis with funding at the city level and at the county level. The county level gives you some money now. If the sales tax is allowed to go through and say a year or 18 months from now that becomes a reality, will that help increase the likelihood they will continue to help fund you?
Yes. I mean, to what level of detail and et cetera. The goal is eventually probably to no longer fund the War Memorial.
But eventually, we need more runway to
Well, we got an email or note a couple weeks back that said it was going to expire in 2033. It may now be 2027. Well, you can imagine my reaction to that.
Yeah.
Right, because that's 4 years out.
It's one of the great assets in our community. If you want to weigh in on this, you should reach out to the county executive's office. Give them your feedback. They're taking feedback right now on budget and financial issues, so let them know how important the War Memorial Center is to us here in our city. Captain Dan Buttery, it's always good to see you. Patty, it's even better to see you.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Hey,
Thank
good
you
to
for
have
your
you here.
service.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy anniversary, sir. It's 4:56 at WTMJ.